Deep in the heart of the Louisiana bayou, whispers travel on the humid breeze. They speak of a creature born of hubris and scientific ambition gone wrong, a creature they called the Toad Man. It began in a secret government facility hidden deep within the swamp. Scientists toiled in secrecy, pushing the boundaries of genetic manipulation. Their goal, to create the perfect soldier. Their methods, unethical, dangerous, and ultimately catastrophic. The creature, a grotesque hybrid of human and amphibian, escaped from the laboratory into the swamp. The Toad Man was loose, and the swamp would never be the same. The escape of the Toad Man sent shockwaves through the local community. Fishermen returning from the swamp told tales of a hulking figure lurking in the shadows. Then came the disappearances. Beloved pets began to vanish without a trace. Small dogs snatched from backyards, cats gone missing from windowsills. The whispers grew more insistent, more fearful. Local authorities dismissed the stories as the product of overactive imaginations. Swamp gas, they said, wild dogs. But those who lived on the edge of the swamp knew better. The stories spread beyond the bayou, carried on the internet and the nightly news. Some dismissed them as urban legend, but others knew there was more to the legend of the Toad Man. The legend of the Toad Man is more than just a scary story. It's a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition and the hubris of humanity. Over the years, the legend has taken on a life of its own, but one thing remains constant. The Toad Man is real, and he is out there.
Tanya loved exploring the woods with her faithful companion, Buddy. The golden retriever was her adventure buddy, always eager to chase squirrels. Today, their trail led them deep into the heart of the woods.
The sun was high, casting long shadows through the trees. Bird songs filled the air, a symphony of trills and chirps. Tanya took a deep breath, savoring the peace of the woods.
Buddy barked happily, his tail wagging as he raced ahead. He stopped every few feet to sniff at the ground.
The trail forked, offering two paths forward.
Come on, Buddy, let's see what we can find.
Tanya glanced at her watch, then back at the fork in the trail. There was still plenty of daylight left, and the lure of the waterfall was strong.
Buddy, no!
Buddy froze, his attention snagged by something in the undergrowth. Before she could react, the golden retriever surged forward, his leash slipping from her grasp.
Buddy, come back!
Tanya raced after him, her heart pounding. But Buddy was gone. A knot of fear twisted in her stomach. The sun was beginning its slow descent, casting long shadows through the trees. Tanya shivered despite the warmth of the day.
Buddy!
Tanya pushed on, her fear for Buddy overriding her growing sense of dread. She called out for him again and again, her voice hoarse with worry, but the only answer was the rustling of leaves. She stumbled over a gnarled tree root, her ankle twisting beneath her. Pain shot up her leg, and she cried out, collapsing to the ground.
Ah!
She had to get out of the woods. She had to find help. The sun was sinking fast, painting the sky in hues of fiery orange and deep purple. Each fading ray of light seemed to heighten the urgency of Tanya's situation. She limped through the undergrowth, her ankle throbbing with each painful step.
Buddy!
Only silence answered her. The woods, once alive with the sounds of birdsong, now seemed to hold their breath. Tanya's mind raced, replaying the moment Buddy's leash slipped from her grasp. She should have turned back then. She should have chosen the safer path. But she pressed on, determined to find her beloved companion. Twilight deepened into night, and the forest transformed into a labyrinth of shadows. The air, once warm and humid, grew cold and damp.
The silence, it was unnerving.
Every creak of a branch, every rustle in the undergrowth sounded like footsteps. Footsteps that were heavy, deliberate, and getting closer.
I found myself holding my breath, listening intently.
An owl hooted in the distance, its mournful cry echoing through the silent woods. Tanya jumped, her hand flying to her mouth to stifle a cry. She had never felt so alone, so vulnerable. The forest, once a place of peace, now felt menacing.
I switched on the flashlight feature on my phone.
She scanned the forest floor, searching for any sign of Buddy.
There, a muddy paw print.
Relief washed over her, followed quickly by a renewed sense of urgency. Buddy was close. She pressed on, her pace quickening despite the throbbing pain in her ankle. She emerged into a small clearing, bathed in the pale light of the moon.
And that's when I saw it, Buddy's collar.
The collar was torn as if ripped from Buddy's neck by force.
This was bad. This was very bad.
A twig snapped behind her, the sound sharp and close in the stillness of the night.
My breath hitched in my throat. I was not alone.
She scrambled to her feet, her injured ankle screaming in protest. The hair on the back of her neck stood on end.
Something was out there, watching me.
The smell hit her then, a pungent, earthy odor, like wet moss and decaying leaves.
Fear, sharp and cold, tightened its grip on my throat.
She had to get out of there, now. Turning, she ran, ignoring the searing pain in her ankle. Each desperate step was fueled by pure adrenaline.
I ran until my lungs burned and my legs screamed for mercy.
The beam of Tanya's phone's flashlight, growing dimmer by the second, danced across the forest floor. She could hear it behind her, the sound of its pursuit, a heavy, slithering sound.
The moon, a pale disk partially veiled by clouds, offered little comfort.
She pressed her hand against her chest, trying to slow her racing heart. She couldn't give in to fear. She had to keep moving, had to keep one step ahead of the nightmare. A flash of lightning illuminated the sky, momentarily banishing the darkness. And in that brief, heart-stopping instant, Tanya saw it.
It was taller than any man had a right to be, its hulking frame draped in rags. Its head was a monstrous toad's head, wide and flat with bulging, lidless eyes. Its mouth, a gaping maw filled with rows of needle-sharp teeth, opened in a silent snarl.
The image, seared into her memory by terror, was gone as quickly as it appeared. But the stench that lingered in the air left no doubt in Tanya's mind. This was real.
My foot caught on a root, sending me sprawling to the ground.
As she landed, her hand brushed against something hard and unyielding. Terror lent her a burst of strength, and she scrambled to her feet, her eyes frantically searching the forest floor for anything at all that she could use as a weapon. A rock, a stick, anything to give her a fighting chance against the horror that hunted her.
My hand closed around a large, sharp-edged rock, and I clutched it to my chest, my only comfort in the face of overwhelming fear. It wouldn't be much, I knew, but it was better than facing that creature empty-handed. I wouldn't go down without a fight.
Her flashlight beam flickered, threatening to plunge her into complete darkness. Desperation clawed at her, urging her onward. She had to keep moving, had to find a way out of this nightmare. And then she saw it, a narrow opening in the dense wall of trees and undergrowth, a tangle of thorns and vines that looked as much a trap as an escape route.
But I had no other choice. Taking a deep breath, I plunged into the thorny embrace, ignoring the pain of thorns tearing at my skin, my clothes snagging and ripping as I forced my way through the narrow passage. Behind me, I could hear the creature's frustrated growl echoing through the trees, urging me onward. The thorny passage opened into a small clearing, bathed in the cold light of the moon. Relief, sharp and fleeting, flooded through me, but it was short-lived. As I took a step forward, my heart sank. The clearing was a dead end, a small, enclosed space with no escape, and standing between me and the only way out, its grotesque form illuminated by the moon, was the Toad Man.
It moved with a surprising agility for its bulk, its long limbs carrying it forward with an almost graceful, slithering motion. Its eyes, those horrible, bulging eyes, never left her, gleaming with a cold, predatory hunger that sent chills down her spine.
My back pressed against the cold, unyielding surface of the rock face, my escape blocked. I raised the rock, my only weapon, my knuckles white as I gripped it tightly. Fear, raw and primal, coursed through me, but beneath it burned a spark of defiance. I wouldn't go down without a fight.
The Toad Man paused, its head cocked to one side as if assessing her, a low growl rumbling deep within its chest. The air crackled with tension, the silence broken only by the sound of Tanya's ragged breathing and the pounding of her own heart. The hunt was almost over.
The Toad Man shifted, its weight shifting from one foot to the other, its gaze never leaving me. A low growl rumbled in its chest, a guttural sound that seemed to vibrate through the very air itself. I stood my ground, my grip tightening on the rock in my hand. Fear, cold and sharp, coursed through my veins, but it was overshadowed by a surge of desperate courage. I wouldn't go down without a fight. I wouldn't let Buddy's memory be tainted by my cowardice.
With a speed that belied its bulk, the Toad Man lunged. Tanya screamed, a primal sound born of terror and adrenaline, and threw the rock with all her might. It struck the creature's shoulder, a glancing blow that elicited a roar of pain and fury. The Toad Man stumbled, momentarily off balance, its glowing eyes blazing with rage.
I didn't hesitate. Seizing the opportunity, I scrambled to my feet, ignoring the throbbing pain in my ankle, and made a desperate dash for the thorny passage, the only escape route from the nightmarish clearing. Thorns tore at my skin, ripped at my clothes, but I didn't care. I had to get away, had to survive this night.
Behind her, she could hear the creature's enraged roar as it recovered from the blow. She didn't dare look back. She ran blindly, recklessly through the darkness, the sound of her own ragged breathing and the pounding of her heart, a frantic counterpoint to the heavy thud of the Toad Man's pursuit. The forest seemed to stretch on forever, a labyrinth of shadows and tangled undergrowth that offered no escape. Tanya's breath rasped in her throat, her lungs burning with exertion. Her ankle throbbed with each painful step, threatening to give way beneath her. But she didn't dare slow down. She could still hear it behind her, the heavy thud of its pursuit, the sound of its ragged breathing, closer now, too close.
My hand brushed against something hard and metallic. I looked down and saw, with a sinking heart, my flashlight lying on the forest floor, its beam extinguished. I must have dropped it during my desperate flight. Despair threatened to overwhelm me, but I pushed it down, clinging to the smallest sliver of hope.
She stumbled on, guided only by instinct, and the faintest glimmer of moonlight filtering through the dense canopy above. The sounds of the forest, once so familiar, now seemed amplified, distorted. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, a harbinger of her doom.
And then I tripped, falling heavily to the ground. Pain shot through my ankle, and I cried out, knowing with a certainty that chilled me to the bone that it was over. I lay there, helpless on the cold, damp earth, waiting for the inevitable. A shadow fell over me, blocking out the faint light of the moon. I didn't need to look up to know that the Toad Man had found me.
The first rays of dawn painted the sky in hues of pink and gold, casting a warm glow on the search party as they combed through the dense undergrowth. They had been searching all night, their faces etched with worry and fatigue, their calls of Tanya echoing through the silent woods. They found her backpack first, lying discarded near the edge of a muddy clearing. It was torn and mud-caked, its contents scattered around it like fallen leaves. Hope, fragile and fleeting, flickered in their hearts, and then they heard it. A soft whimpering sound coming from deeper within the woods. They followed the sound, their hearts pounding with a mixture of hope and dread, until they found him, Buddy, sitting beside a familiar-looking rock, his tail tucked between his legs, his fur matted with mud and leaves. But of Tanya, there was no sign. The search continued for weeks, but no trace of Tanya was ever found. The official explanation was that she had become disoriented, lost in the woods, and succumbed to the elements. But those who lived on the edge of the bayou, those who had heard the whispers on the wind, knew the truth. They knew that the legend of the Toad Man was real. And they knew that Tanya was not the first, and she would not be the last, to vanish into the depths of the swamp, claimed by the creature that haunted their nightmares. The Toad Man lived on, a chilling reminder that some secrets are best left buried, and some creatures are best left undisturbed in the shadows.